Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. Welcome to the Clutter Fairy Weekly for December 1st, 2020. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gail Goddard, professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is our weekly webcast and podcast where we talk about all things organizing, and we're so glad that you're here. After the Thanksgiving holiday, I hope everybody ate to the explosion and they are ready to start an exercise program now because they had so much fun. And we will be talking today about, now that it's the charity season, we're going to talk about donations. And this is, again, as usual, this is one of the topics that has come up for conversation in our comments and all the social media channels. So we really appreciate that you help us steer the focus of our channel by making comments everywhere. Thanks for doing that.
If you're joining us in the Zoom meeting for the first time, you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gail gets to them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature to let me know that you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. We're streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can also share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gail. And during the live webcast every Tuesday, you can call us at 669-900-6833 to talk to us directly. Use meeting ID 993-419-863 and password clutter to join the meeting. As we're working to declutter our homes, we sometimes get stopped in our tracks by emotions attached to the things that we're trying to let go of. Familiar problem, right? We've talked about these before: regret over purchasing choices and money spent, shame about plans or aspirations that didn't come to fruition, and hang-ups about the real or imagined value of stuff that we allow to take up our space. One great way to quiet those negative emotions is to shift focus to something more positive, such as the thought of how the things we need to part with might help someone else. Our topic today is a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, declutter via donation. I'm going to give a gold star to the first person who can tell us the source for that title.
And I did not know the source, so I did not get the gold star. So somebody
You're going
else
to be no
has
help
to
at
get
all.
it. No, I did not know it at all. In this season of giving, lots of people donate to worthy causes, and mostly with monetary gifts. But we can also give material stuff to support causes with the output of our decluttering. It takes more physical work and personal time than writing and mailing a check, but the process supports both the giver and the receiver in a big way. As we talk about this, first, let's set some ground rules for decluttering via donation. The first one is, don't donate items that are dirty or repairably damaged to charities. Most charitable organizations don't have the resources or want to spend the time and effort to clean and repair donated items. These things are good candidates for curbside free cycling instead. And if no one picks them up off the curb, you can take the hint and move them straight to your garbage or recycling bin as appropriate. The second rule for this process is, if you're donating to an organization with a published list of needs, don't give them anything that's not on their list without checking with them first. Once you've just, otherwise you've just turned your clutter into their clutter, and you're probably making more work for really overworked volunteers. And so most organizations have that list of things that they want. They might call it a wish list or a donation list or acceptable donation list. And then if you have something else that you think might be useful to them, then take the time to make a phone call and ask them if it's something that they want. Don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good. In other words, don't get so focused on making sure your stuff gets to the right home that you slow down the process or let the stuff stick around indefinitely. If you're presented with a choice between the perfect destination that won't be able to pick up for 3 or 4 weeks and a pretty good alternative that can get your things gone tomorrow, don't feel bad about making the pretty good choice if it helps you keep your decluttering momentum and helps you clear out the house and not be living with a backlog. Sometimes having the clutter pile in the corner for a month is just as annoying as going through the decluttering process itself. So keep your own sanity in mind and pick a choice that is available sooner rather than later. Another rule is finding a place that you feel good about donating things takes some research and some effort on your part. If you want the best place for things to go, then you need to put some time into finding such a place. If you don't want to put any time into finding it, then you have to ask yourself if this is really the issue or if this is a form of stalling or avoiding letting go. If you can never find a place that works for you, then the block is probably you and you're not okay with giving stuff away yet. Time to do some more work with yourself about your decluttering goals and why you're going through this process at all. If you can declutter, but the stuff can never actually leave the house, then you're not really decluttering, you're really rearranging. And you may be putting them in a donate pile, but if it's still in the house and you can never quite find the right place, despite a whole bunch of work, then you need to stop and say, maybe I'm not as ready as I thought I was. And it's time to do some exploration about that. So the last ground rule we're gonna put out today is be kind and charitable to the people that work for the places that you donate. It's easy to forget they're working hard for very little money, or they may actually be volunteers, so they may not always be as cheerful and grateful as you would hope or expect them to be. Don't let a poor reception sour the experience for you. You're still supporting a worthy cause, even if a receiving employee is having a bad day. I have a perfect example of this in my own, I'm going in and out of donation places all the time. And one of the places that I regularly donate has an employee who we nicknamed Surly Girl because every time I go there, she is as rude as possible to me. And she acts completely put out that she's having to help. And she's super annoyed that we have a carload instead of one bag. And it's like, I'm a professional organizer. Of course I have a carload. I have 57 client stuff in the back of my car right now. So I know that she is not the charity. And I know that the charity still wants the stuff because I regularly check in with the managing director and say, are we still cool? Have I been bringing you things you don't want? I do an update pretty regularly to make sure I'm still on target. And I know that her reception does not reflect the charity's point of view. And so, yes, she's surly, and yes, it could be more pleasant when I donate, but she isn't, and it's not, and I still need to donate there. So I don't let that prevent me from using this organization as a solution. And, you may encounter somebody who's really having a bad day when you go to drop your stuff off. Don't let that color the fact that you've evaluated this place as the place for this stuff to go. The end. Thus endeth the lecture. Now that we've set some ground rules, let's explore options to donate your decluttering efforts. So we're going to go through lists now. Option number 1, find a local charity that you feel good about supporting and see if you have anything in your house that they might need. Check whether they have a published list, because most of them do, of current needs. So if they have any kind of a website, somewhere on there is going to say something like donations to things to donate, ways to donate, our wish list, our needs list, something like that. Now, they often publish on there, we'd love for you to buy these kinds of things at the store and bring them to us. They're looking for you to buy new things, but they also would probably take, and some of them have donation lists for, we know it's used and we want these kinds of things to receive. So go looking for their wish list and find out what they need.
Connie mentioned a great example. She said, when I called a charity to find out if they had any of their famous marmalades this year, I also asked if they needed empty jars, and they said, oh yes, enthusiastically.
Woohoo! There you go. Now, the only caveat I'll put here is you probably don't want to make your task list 37 steps long when you could make it 4 steps long. So taking a bunch of jars to one charity and getting rid of jars is probably something that you should accumulate. Like if you find out if they want jars and find out if there's anything else that you can put on the list to give them as well. Don't just make one trip for the jars. See if you can pad their donation with other things, or if you want to take jars and they need jars, maybe you and all of your friends will pool your jars and then one of you will take the jars so that it's a trip that gets rid of a lot of stuff in one pass. So check if you can see if they have the published list. If they don't have a list or you can't find a website for this place, then make the phone call, speak to somebody in the organization about things that would help them right now serve their mission. So any regular volunteer or program director who works for the charity will have ideas to offer right away. Then look for specific things on their list to declutter your home. And like she said here, they needed jars, you have jars, all my friends have jars, we can make the jars disappear, right? Option number 2. This is a shift in focus exercise and example. So pick a category of things that you want to declutter. So in the example I have is in your closet, you've got women's clothes, shoes, and handbags. So where would you be happy to donate your clothes? Maybe a refugee program, maybe a women's shelter, a fire recovery program. Pick and check out a charity that could use your items. You need to verify that they can use the types of things you'll be bringing. So just make the phone call or check the website so you know that it's a real fit. And then declutter your closet with that charity in mind. Touch everything and ask yourself, do I need it more than they do? And when you're unsure or feel yourself vacillating about keeping it or donating it, think of your chosen charities and imagine how someone else will be so happy to have what you feel ambivalent about. Focus on that thought to help you make the decision to let it go. Another example of a declutter category would be thinning out the linen closet for a fire recovery program or a pet shelter in mind while you're sorting so that it will help you let go of more easily. Option number 3. And we've talked about this a few times before, offer groups of items to your personal networks. So send an email or a text if you want young people to answer to your friends and family with some photos and a few words of description of the things that you're trying to offer up. Or post on Facebook for your friends to see and ask them to share it with their networks or suggest someone in need to you. Your friends may know of something that you don't have any idea about. They may have somebody in the family, they may have a friend, they may know somebody from church, just like you might. And so every friend that you ask is going to expand your possibilities of finding somebody that can use what you have to give. Option number 4, use a Facebook Marketplace or Nextdoor.com to create items for free listings. So I have this thing for free for safe on the porch pickup. So we can repeat a word of caution from last week. Facebook Marketplace can draw a really large audience. So if you're getting rid of something that's popular or you expect that there to be a huge response to, you might want to put a price of a few dollars on the item just to limit the responses a little bit. If you choose not to ask for the money when the buyer actually shows up, you probably won't get any complaints. And this is another reason to start with Nextdoor.com first, because it's going to be a smaller, much more local audience that is usually defined by your subdivision and maybe a few subdivisions around you. So it's a much more compact audience. If you try to Nextdoor first and it doesn't go away, then you can go and list it in Facebook Marketplace and get a wider audience and see if somebody will pick it up that way. You'd be surprised how many things you put it on Facebook and somebody will go, oh yeah, I need to have that. Okay, option number 5 is putting things out ahead of junk trash pickup day in your neighborhood and let the local recyclers pick stuff up off the curb. If you do this every time junk trash comes around, the people that go searching for junk will remember and revisit you. They will start cruising the curb. So make sure that you post this on your local Nextdoor.com listing that, hey, I just put a bunch of stuff out on the curb, and you can take a picture of it sitting on the curb, and that will spur some people to come and drive by and look. So it'll help get people to swing by, and then the people that naturally drive by would come, and between the two, usually it will all be disappeared by the time you go looking for it again. I used to live on a main street in a subdivision that was sort of like the entrance street, and I lived actually in the middle of that street, that from the front to the back of the subdivision. And so almost everybody had to drive by my house on the way to their house every day. And so I would put things out on the curb and things that were, I knew Goodwill would throw away, or things that I felt like hadn't been cleaned enough to take to the charity in mind. And I would put them on the curb, and as soon as I would go in the house and close the door, a car would have stopped to pick it up. So I'm always quite shocked what will disappear off the curb in a flash of the second. If you don't have that much traffic, that's a good reason to take a picture and put it on Nextdoor so that the people in your subdivision know that it's out there, and then they can make the trip within their subdivision, and it won't be a hard drive for them, right? It'll be close by. So it makes it worth the effort to put a picture up in Nextdoor. If you're sort of like at the end of a cul-de-sac or something, you don't have a lot of drive-by traffic, you can generate it through Nextdoor. Okay. Option number 6, ask your religious organization and check with the office secretary there if they know of anybody in dire need through tragedy, or if they have programs running that could use the donations. You can also ask churches, synagogues, mosques in your neighborhood the same questions. Whether or not you attend there doesn't mean that you can't support their charity. So make sure you Google churches near me, synagogues near me. You can pick your religious leaning and go searching for what's in your neighborhood and make phone calls to all those places and see what kind of programs they got going. You can also ask your local schools and teachers the same thing. Everybody lives near an elementary school, right? Like there's always a little elementary school close by. So calling the office secretary up there and saying, hey, I have some stuff. Would anybody need it? I have these things. Would teachers care? You might be able to get some feedback from local schools or teachers. If you have any friends who are teachers, or teachers through your kid's school, you might ask a few teachers. Basically, anybody who works in a service organization like a church or a school will be aware of local charities and specific people in need. So ask those who work in the field of helping others to give you some ideas about how to help others. Option number 7, look for other local groups like the PTA or any kind of mothers groups. There's a whole bunch of mothers groups that operate either within the school or within local churches where they're meeting together and the kids come together and they interact for an hour or two. They might also have some suggestions to make. You can check Facebook for local Buy Nothing project groups. So Buy Nothing Project is the name, a group for that, or a similar group that's dedicated to exchanging items locally for free. So the Buy Nothing Project is an organization that offers people a way to give and receive, share, lend, and express gratitude through a worldwide network of hyper-local gift economies. It operates mostly through the mechanism of Facebook groups, so you can find out more about that specific group at buynothingproject.org, and he'll put that in the notes for today. It's just a mechanism for you to interact with people that are trying to share and lend and give. And so if there's one that's operating near you in your neighborhood, you can get hooked up with them and start donating to them. Option number 8 is a very specific email. Send a very targeted email to ask your friends about their favorite charities and to check them out. So maybe you have a list in your head of charities that you work with, but you can also ask your friends. They'll be connected to a whole other set of charities that you don't know anything about. They may volunteer places already, and they can be your connection to a whole bunch of other charities. So let your friends help you do your research by making suggestions about who they donate to and why, where those places are located, and what's going on. This is the way that you leverage your own network for information, and they can suggest things that are just as easy for you to use as they use, and you just haven't interacted with them yet. You just don't know about them yet. So make sure you check it out with them and see if they can offer something new. Option number 9 is to check with any kind of shelter, human or pet shelter, to find out about their needs. They have regular recurring needs for clothing or accessories because, of course, the shelter is always giving clothing out to the people that appear. And for animal shelters, it's linens and pet supplies, and they'll have a list on their website, or they can give you a list by phone. Especially in the winter season, all kinds of shelters have an increased demand as the weather starts to turn bad. And so it's a good time to clear out the closet, especially with warm weather. Warm clothing for the cold weather. So now's the time when they have a larger population of people running through the door that have needs for clothing. Now's the time to supply them with the clothing. Option 10, our last on the list today, so get ready. I'm going to start asking you about it. Option 10 is the call pickup charities that regularly send out a truck, like Habitat for Humanity or Goodwill or the Purple Heart veterans. These people all have a pickup process where they call you and schedule a pickup, and then you put things out on the front porch. The policies and procedures for charity pickup vary by chapter and by region, so be sure to contact the organization or to check their website to make sure that what you want to donate satisfies their terms for pickup. Usually they have to be in a box that's marked with the charity. Like if it's not marked with a label with their name on it, they're not allowed to pick it up. So you have to be careful that you put it out in the way that allows their drivers to take it, and make sure that it's easy for them to pick up. You don't want to annoy the driver. So putting a huge box out there makes it harder for them to maneuver it. So think of the poor people that have to break their back to pick it up off the porch, and make it easy to pick up and not huge. More smaller is better. The fact that they're scheduled a time to come by is a good accountability trigger to get you to donate again. So a lot of people use this as they called me and they scheduled, and that forces me to put it on the calendar and make something go out on the porch. And that's awesome. They're an external trigger. They're a third party. And if you use that recurring appointment that they make with you as a way to spur you into action when nothing else will, awesome. Let it happen and let them do their thing and be the way that you get more things out of the house. Perfect time to do that. Okay, so who wants to talk to me or ask questions about donation? Who has their special way to donate? What is your advice to your friends?
In response to the suggestion about giving things to your personal network, Abby says, I do that with family stuff. Although I got this thing, I asked, has someone else in the family changed their mind about wanting something? I recently did that with sets of sake to my brother, purchased at the time of his wedding in Japan, and our other brother a tea set, which was purchased at the same place, and he was also at that wedding. And Lise mentions, we're amazed that everything we put out on the curb will be gone before trash pick.
I cleaned out the garage recently. I was reorganizing and going through. I collect things for the various charities and then go take them off in bulk. I deliver them in bulk. And so we were rearranging the contents a little bit and going through, and we found some things that were not appropriate for the charity that we were going to take them to. And so I made a huge pile at the side of the curb. And when we were doing it, I thought, oh my gosh, I hope this goes away fast. And we put one picture on Nextdoor, and people started coming. A truck came by, another truck came by, and they kept picking up stuff. And I was like, why are they taking it? But it doesn't really matter why. It was gone. And by the time heavy trash came, there was nothing left for them to pick up. Like, we were not even a candidate anymore, because this massive pile of stuff that would have been thrown in the trash had been relocated somewhere else. It was super awesome. I'm always amazed how quickly it will go.
On the topic of the worsening weather, the cooler weather, Lorraine, who's with us on Facebook, says, my friend's daughter is making a drop-off trip to the homeless camp in Hamilton.
Ooh.
I'll be contributing crocheted hats, ear warmers, cowls, and scarves, and making even more. I also have 40 masks ready to go. If we all do our part to help others, the bonus is we in turn help ourselves. It's so good for the soul.
Right. It's a great give and take kind of thing, right? Like, you're supporting your own goals and you're letting your space become more comfortable for you and something that you find more pleasant, and you're still letting those things go and have a use for somebody else. I think this is the perfect time. Even summer gear, you can go donate it now, even if you're getting rid of summer clothing, and they'll just stash it somewhere until somebody wants warm clothes. Or they may use them as layering, right? Like they'll give them the lighter shirt to put under a sweater, for instance. So just keep that in mind. There's always somebody that can use the stuff. And if a shelter, anybody that runs a shelter, anybody that's ever visited a shelter knows that they're, talk about a bootstrap organization. They're always struggling. They're always on the edge of disaster. They always have more demand than they have stuff. So you might as well dive in and let it go and help them, stay open and keep doing what they do.
I think you mentioned refugee organizations in talking about churches. And when we were still living in Pennsylvania, at the time of the end of the Vietnam War, our church sponsored a refugee family from Vietnam, and they had an unused old rectory. I guess they had replaced their rectory, so they had an old house,
had an old building
that no one was living in, but it was a mess. And so they solicited donations and volunteers, and we were our family was part of the volunteer team, and 4 or 5 families and a bunch of individuals swarmed over the place for a weekend and stripped off wallpaper and painted every surface and cleaned everything and pulled up floors and replaced floors and all that sort of thing. And it was a wonderful project, and it really, kind of brought the community together. And there were people who donated new and used appliances and everything that it was needed. Their refugee organizations are always desperate for almost anything, even lightly used clothes, lightly used appliances that still work.
Yeah, linens, housewares. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's usually it seems to be a typical charitable project that churches do, that
Yeah.
they either receive and house refugees, or they serve as a way station for people on the way somewhere else, or they adopt somebody, or they ship things somewhere, or whatever.
Yeah, they're part of the pipeline for materials.
Yeah. Like it's some way that they interact with people that are just arriving in the United States and trying to start their lives. And so churches are a good place to go and find that kind of a funnel that you can then add things into the pipeline. And I'm sure no church cares whether you attend their church or not if you're giving something to their donation. So it is it's a good source to call around and see who's doing what, who's doing those kind of projects.
And Connie says, when my husband's school was getting new furniture, a person walked past and asked if he could have the old desks for a school in his home country of Albania. He got donations from many teachers to hire a truck full there. I think she means, they rented a truck to fill with stuff.
Yeah, to take it. Yeah.
Kathleen mentioned animal shelters always need towels and linens, and they also take grocery bags sometimes. And she also mentioned big brothers and big sisters as a
that's a good one. Yeah.
I don't know what they take, but I'm sure, since they are supporting underprivileged kids, I'm sure that they can always use certain categories of things.
Exactly. And I also take this happens a lot when I'm helping somebody declutter, and we come across a cache of pet supplies that went with an animal that they no longer have. Like, this is the old dog's collar that has passed away. These are the dog dishes for the dog that was 95 pounds, and now I have a 10-pound dog. Like, there's things that end up in the house and were used, and the animal's gone, and now they don't want the stuff. And so it's an easy way to supplement them. Here's some collars, here's some dog dishes, here's some that kind of stuff. There's some toys that haven't been used, and so it's a way for them to spend their money on their budget on something else. If you can supply them dishes that they can use, then they don't have to buy as many dishes, right? So I do take the dog collars, and like if there's dog like blankets or coats or whatever, I will wash them first before I donate them, because of course they're always covered in the dog's fur and scent and all that kind of stuff. And so I do run them through a wash before I donate them away. But and I will also take off identifying tags. A lot of times there'll be a rabies tag or somebody's name and phone number on it, and I'll take those tags off. I won't do it in front of the client because it's usually distressing to the client to see the tags anyway. Like they're upset about them. And so I take that home, and then I take the labels, the tags off with identifying data, and throw that out, and then donate the collar, wash the collar and donate them. So they will likely, in Houston, we have bark, we have there's some no-kill shelters. There's lots of places that we can donate to. And so most of mine go, because I have a neighbor that is a regular volunteer at bark. And so I take my stuff to her. She takes it off to bark when she goes to bark 3 times a week or whatever. So I even have, I have a regular train going to bark.
Also in Houston, if you're in the Heights area or the Greater Heights area, check out Canine Angels.
Oh,
They're
right.
a small no-kill shelter operating out of a bungalow in the
Heights area.
western end of the Heights, really almost Timber Grove. And that's where we got Hardy.
Yeah, right. And occasionally I'll end up with a crate or one of those, pop-up wire cages that people use to let the animals sleep in at night or whatever. And I take all those things and donate them to bark, because I'm sure they use them in their facility, or they can give them to people who are adopting. So I just funnel all that stuff away to the pet place.
Monique asked, has anyone found a charity or place recently that will take working and in good order non-flat screen TVs? The tube kind. Salvation Army doesn't, and Goodwill doesn't.
Interesting.
Do you have any ideas on that?
So what comes to mind for me is looking at assisted living centers or senior centers that don't have a lot of budget, don't have a big budget. They might use that kind of stuff in, sort of central living spaces, their central living rooms and their central media rooms. You might have a place to put some kind of TV like that. This is where you have to go looking for organizations that have minimal budget, because anything is better than nothing when you have no budget at all. And so if they need a TV, you can find something local and small that would be helpful.
Lorraine mentions Star of Hope, which is a mission shelter in Houston that will usually take things when other organizations won't.
Yeah, and you can ask Habitat for Humanity, like call the Habitat Restore if you have one in your area, and see if they would take a TV like that for one of their houses, because they're usually furnishing all those houses from their donations as well. So they might have a budget for new TVs, but I don't know that. And so you may see if somebody would want that. And you can also ask, this is a good thing to put on Nextdoor too, to put it on Nextdoor and see if somebody claims it on behalf of, hey, I have an extra sitting room. Hey, my kid is moving out. Hey, whatever. There may be some small local need that you can fill with an old TV that still works. Because, like I said, I used to have a large big tube TV too. I mean, it was a big screen with all, and just as deep as it was wide. And if it still works, it might be an improvement over what somebody has now. You'd be surprised.
That might be a good candidate for Nextdoor or something like that as well.
Yeah. Or a local church. Again, that might be something that if you called a refugee program or called one of the church's charity projects, they might have a use for a TV in part of their giving projects.
Yeah.
And they'd be happy to take it.
And as a last option, this isn't donation, but you can recycle it at Best Buy, and they'll charge you a fee, $10, I think,
10 or
nowadays.
$20, yeah.
But they give you a credit in the store for the same amount. So you
Yeah, so
just have to
basically they
be
trade you the TV for something
stuff.
out of the store. So
Yeah.
you can go spend you get a little gift card and you give them $20 and you get a little gift card, you go spend it in the store. And so you're basically you get value, you get Best Buy value for the $20 you give to get them to take your TV away, basically.
Lori, who's with us on Facebook, said, I looked up a local toy charity wanting to donate some new and gently used toys for Christmas, but it says due to COVID, they have enough items and are not accepting new donations.
Ooh.
Any other thoughts?
So I would call usually there's a toy drive associated with fire departments. And so you might see if the fire department, your local fire department, is doing that toy drive, or if they're not doing it this year. That's a good question. I know that they did do food giveaways here, but I don't know if they did a donation exception. Like if they had people drop off donations, I know they had, give away food, but I don't know if they received food from people this year at Thanksgiving. So it's a good question. Yeah, COVID may make this a little more difficult. Right?
It's making many things more difficult.
Right. Yeah, it's true. I'm seeing a comment about giving things in a police car. What was that about?
I have not seen that one yet. Sorry. Connie mentioned I bought infant clothing at a charity shop, and then when our daughter outgrew the clothes, back it went, if not badly stained.
Right? If not badly stained, right? Well, and there is a point at which they look so terrible that you can't imagine that anybody would want to use them. But at that point, you can also donate them to Goodwill and let the cotton things go into cotton recycling. Goodwill does cotton recycling, and there's even some point to let the fabric just be recycled. So depending on what it is and how much fabric is involved in a little kid's clothes, you can donate them into the pet animal shelter bag and let them use the fabric for something else besides, little kids spit up. It can be doggy spit up instead.
Deborah mentions an avenue that wasn't on our list, and that is to check around
Yay,
at
Deborah.
your workplace. And she says, in my school, we have a table in the staff kitchen for donations because we have a strong, active green team, and reuse is strongly encouraged. Maybe other workplaces are as ecologically minded. If you are still going to a physical location other than your living room to work, and check with your workplace. Check if you're not aware of something in the lunchroom or break room. Check with human resources maybe to see if they are collecting anywhere.
If there's such a thing, or if you could make such a thing.
Yeah.
I will also say, keep in mind that a lot of assisted living places have sort of a garage sale room. They have a giveaway room that they let the residents run. And as people give up things in their apartments, then they put them in the giveaway room, and other residents or employees or people that are through there can come and take things away. And they sort of use it as an exchange board. And so you might check with any kind of assisted living facility or senior center, like the city-run senior centers might have. They might know people in need. They might know of places where things can go. They might have their own exchange actually happening. But when you get to the point where you're dealing with people in assisted living or in senior centers where they're going during the day for senior related activities, you're interacting with a lot of people that are on fixed incomes, that are on, they're struggling to make their expenses meet their income. And so anything that can supplement them will be helpful, and you might be able to interact with that population with a few phone calls to local service providers.
Lorraine mentions that in the Houston area, another pet a pet rescue, I'm not sure if it's pet rescue or pet adoption, is Friends for Life in the Heights. And Deborah mentioned I donated various cat things to my vet to donate to lower income pet owners.
Yeah, I have done that a lot too. Before I got the bark hookup where it was going straight to the animal shelter, I would drop off the same kinds of things to my local vet, the vet that I was taking my own animals to. And I still, when I have a big load that I need to get rid of quickly, I will still wash those things and take them to the emergency animal clinic that is the vet that I use now, but they're open 24 hours. And so because they're an emergency facility, I can go any time of the day or night and drop off stuff, which is awesome. So there's the vets, any vet is also doing surgery, and they also have that need to use a bunch of linens to take care of sick and animals that have surgery. And so any kind of a vet, as long as you ask them in advance and tell them what you are thinking of bringing, and then go during their business hours and interact with that person that you talk to. You don't want to overwhelm them, but usually they're happy to take donations. And they do have clients who, not everybody can afford all the things that a pet needs. And so if he can be the person, if the vet can be the person that exchanges it from you to them, awesome. Great idea. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Deborah also mentions upcycle groups. These are people who are making new things out of old for resale.
Right.
And I suppose they might be found on Facebook or anywhere else online that allows for the creation of groups.
Well, and at that point, you're looking for people who are creatively making something new. And so you're looking for crafty people, right? Like you're looking for people that want to take that chair and rebuild it, or they want to refinish something that has died. And so that's probably a pretty specific targeted place. It won't be high volume, but it may be perfect for you to, I have this piece of decrepit table or chair or something, and does somebody want to take it and upcycle it into something else? When you start interacting with the crafty people, this is why you want to find a creative reuse center in your area. If somebody is operating something like Texas Art Asylum is here, any kind of creative reuse center is going to be the intersection between things you want to get rid of and things a crafter, artist, inventor wants to take your stuff and upcycle it into something else new. So go hunting, Googling creative reuse center in your neighborhood in order to intersect with those people.
Marcy says Best Buy doesn't take tube TVs for recycling anymore unless you buy a new one from them, maybe.
Oh.
We tried. And I looked at their website to try and confirm that, and they still say they recycle televisions, but they also point out that their recycling programs vary from place to place, so that it's probably related to how difficult it is for them to get rid of something,
Right. So it's location. So check with your own store to verify whether they will take it or not, whether you have to buy a new TV in order to do that or not. Well, maybe that's just how they that's how they shrink down the funnel. Like they're trying to choke the stream of incoming stuff by making it. They'll only take an old one if you take a new one home. That slows down how much they get. So check with your local place. So Marcy has her hand up, Ed. So
Marcy, will you unmute yourself?
Hi, Marcy.
Hi. I'm not sure how to do this yet, but I was
You're
asking
doing good.
if there's anywhere that we can see all the chat after, because there's a lot of good info, but it's going so fast.
You can save the chat yourself by clicking the little, there are three little dots. I think that's available to participants.
Yeah, not on an iPad.
Oh, not on an iPad. Well, then maybe we need to save, censor and publish the chat. I'm not sure.
I didn't say anything bad.
No.
So Marcy, did you open the chat and look down where you would be putting a message and those three little dots?
Yeah, I'm going to try again. I tried it on another meeting that somebody told me about it, and I was told you can't do it on an iPad.
That may be true. Yeah. The Zoom app varies quite a bit between different platforms.
Okay, just
Okay,
checking.
I'll check it. Maybe on here I can. Thank you.
Well, but thank you for pointing that out, and we can put this into the notes for the podcast, the webcast. So you want to throw your page up again?
I will.
Ed?
Yeah, and I didn't say anything about that when I put it up earlier, but we have set up pages for. There's a page on the Clutter Fairy Houston website for each show, and so you can.
It's popping out.
By the time we have edited and published the YouTube video and the podcast version, we put up a page on the site for each show, and it's always cfhou.com/TCFW, the Clutter Fairy Weekly, and the show number. And this week's will be number 47, so TCFW 047. And
047.
047, yeah, sorry. And so we will, we're doing that every week. So you can always look for a page there with any links that we've talked about or lists that we've rattled off too fast for people to be able to hear, remember it all. JC mentions hospitals sometimes take clothes, children's especially, for people to go home from the emergency room with broken bones. Then the person doesn't have to destroy their good clothes they were wearing when the accident happened.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I wouldn't have thought of that. And also somebody said, my aunt threw a party where you had to bring an unwanted wedding gift you'd received, and then you had to convince someone else to take it. I think of the unwanted wedding gifts you can get, but can't figure out how to get rid of it. I think that's a great idea. So anything that you do, just keep in mind that you don't want this process to exponentially expand your task list, your things to do during the holidays. You want to try to find a bulk solution, but having a party and having a bunch of people show up to rifle through your stuff is a possibility, as long except maybe not right during COVID, right? Like maybe this isn't the year for an exchange party. But in the future, it would be a good one. And in the meantime, you can do that. You can have a Zoom party, do it that way, convince people to put their wedding gifts and try to give it away on Zoom.
And Deborah, who, if she gives us any more good ideas, we're going to have to make her a co-host, says, in Vancouver, the police trauma services collect things like teddy bears for kids who have witnessed a crime or trauma. And so your local police agency, or I would think also, social service agencies that serve child clients probably might be a good place to donate.
Right. And think of Child Protective Services, the Child Protective Services office and volunteers could use them. So
I have to apologize and say the chat has been so active that I have 75 messages I haven't gotten to, but we are running out of time. So I will promise that Gail and I will read the chat and try to recognize some of the additional great ideas. And we'll publish the chat transcript on the show notes.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you guys had so many great ideas. That's exactly what we wanted, for you guys to give each other great ideas.
But we have to move on. And so I'm going to make a couple quick announcements before I get your final thoughts. I want to remind viewers and listeners that our YouTube channel has more than 100 videos on a wide variety of organizing topics. Go to cfhou.com/YouTube to find it. Subscribe to our channel and then click the bell icon next to the subscribe button if you would like to get notifications when we post new content. I also want to remind people, as I periodically do, that you can hire Gail. If you're in the Houston area, Gail will make arrangements to visit you in person if you are comfortable doing so. And she takes lots of COVID precautions to be able to serve clients in person. But you can also hire Gail from anywhere in the world to do virtual organizing. Go to cfhou.com/virtual to learn about how that works. We will meet next Tuesday, December 8th at noon U.S. Central Time, live in Zoom and streaming on Facebook. We'll talk about time and task management. Just like our physical spaces, our schedules and lists of things to do can become messy and unmanageable. And the tools and technologies that are supposed to help us can make us feel even more confused and overwhelmed. Next week, we're going to talk about how to declutter your calendars and to-do lists to spend more time doing the things you really want to be doing. Okay, Gail, your final thoughts.
Here's my final thought. Donating is a perfect way to feel good about letting go of what you consider your excess. Find several recipients for your donations that resonate with you and let their needs fuel your decluttering, especially for those who don't have a family nearby or who don't need what you have to give. Creating a link to a charity that you support will give you a warm feeling to counteract the distress of decluttering. It's a great symbiosis. They need stuff and you have stuff to give. Use that relationship to help you shed excess during this charitable season and enjoy a more organized home next year.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To get notifications about our upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or subscribe to our mailing list by going to cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from our viewers and listeners, so please keep the questions and topic suggestions coming in the YouTube comments or anywhere that you find us. And you can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com. Ta-da!
Ta-da! We are so glad that you joined us. I hope everybody had a great holiday weekend, even though it was pouring down rain here in Houston. We had a nice, quiet time, and I hope you did too. We'll see you next week when we talk about time and task management. I know you can't wait. I can't either. Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.